Well, joining us now is Adrian Dix, British Columbia's Minister for Energy and Climate Solution. Minister, thank you for taking the time.
Great to be on the show, Michael.
So this is the first time that you and I have had a chance to speak since Alberta and Ottawa signed that MOU last week. And it seems like your Premier is now open to talking about a new pipeline, but he does not want it to go to the BC North Coast. So what's the alternative here?
Well, we've talked about it from the beginning. There are less expensive alternatives for Alberta than the one that's suggested in this MOU. We've made this case in terms of optimization. Most pipeline capacity expansion in North America, indeed in the world, are optimization projects now. It's not building new pipelines. This one doesn't make sense. There's no proponent, there's no business plan, there's no possibility of the cost being suggested that there would be the kind of contracts. After all, shippers have to pay the tolls to pay for pipelines in theory. The only exception to that is TMX, of course, where the taxpayer has subsidized it to the tune of $18 billion, and that's an exception to that. So we made the case from the beginning that they can optimize other arrangements and get the same capacity. If you look at the most recent report on pipeline capacity by the Toronto Dominion Bank, it says that there's 1.1 million barrels per day of potential capacity for Alberta at very inexpensive costs. And we've been making this point for some time. That said, this particular proposal, which means a lifting of the tanker ban, this particular proposal, which is not economic and will cause disruption and negatively affect other projects, is not, in my view, a serious proposal in any event, even if the federal government has relieved Alberta of a number of major climate obligations.
Okay, listen, I'll dig into a couple of those pieces. And you talk about pipeline optimization. And when you go through this MOU, of course, you also mentioned TMX. They are looking towards optimizing TMX and getting more through that pipeline and get that out to Tidewater. But they also want, in addition to that, though.
It's exactly the opposite, Michael. It's exactly the opposite. What they're saying is that TMX doesn't matter in their analysis of the situation. That's what the MOU says, which is, I think, a very strange thing to say.
Well, sorry to interrupt. But they do want more out of TMX, but they want something on top of TMX.
They want 1 million barrels, they say, on top of that. That's what they say. But they essentially are excluding TMX. They have that option. They're excluding it as an option. It's not an inclusive option. It's an excluding it from consideration. So it's the opposite of what one would logically think they'd be doing. In any event, those options are obviously available to them and have been for time. And they've decided to go this route, which is a different route. From our perspective, the fundamentals stay the same. We got real projects in BC. North Coast Transmission Line, which I talked about, 300 meetings with First Nations. We have signed term sheets from many of them. We're proceeding on that project. That's a real project. This is, even in the view of the proponent, which is the province of Alberta, which so far has put in $14 million for a communications plan, won't be started until, I don't know, they won't even have a proposal to consider until sometime towards the middle of next year. So I know that it's important to spend time on these projects that are far-fetched. We'd like to spend our time talking about the dozens of real projects in BC. And by real, I mean projects approaching final investment decisions. Real projects, not ones without proponents.
Okay, so when the Premier says this weekend he would be open to talking about a new pipeline if the moratorium on tankers was respected, is he being frank that he is willing to talk about a new pipeline, or is he trying to divert people back to TMX?
Quite the contrary. Quite the contrary. We have consistently engaged in a serious way with both Alberta and Ottawa on these issues. And Alberta and Ottawa have gone ahead with an MOU, which means the lifting of the tanker ban, which puts BC projects at risk and our coast at risk. And we're not in favor of that. And ignores possible ways to get, if that's what they want, more Alberta oil to other markets.
And that includes a new pipeline? That includes a new pipeline, or just optimization?
But with respect to TMX, look, what we're saying is we like to talk about real projects, and there isn't any. Right? We have always been willing to talk to the province of Alberta and the government of Canada. They proceeded along this line. This line, in my view, doesn't make any sense for our economy. puts real economic growth at risk and is a significant problem for everyone. We've always been prepared to talk to them. I've always been prepared to talk to Minister Jean. The Premier's always talked to Premier Smith and the Prime Minister about these questions. But what they proposed last week, clearly, in our view, isn't economic, isn't a real project, puts significant BC investments at risk, and puts our coast at risk. And so we're not in favor of that.
Well, right now, as you know, as everyone has heard from Premier Smith, she is working with several petroleum companies looking for a serious private proponent for a new pipeline project. She has 4 months to make that happen. If she does, is your province open to creating, helping build, making possible a new pipeline to go through BC to the coast?
It's not on us, Michael. What I find disconcerting about that question, with respect, I know you have to ask it, and these are the kinds of questions you ask, is it puts the fact that there's no proponent, no proposal on us. I mean, these things take a significant amount of time to plan. There's also no route and no potential customers, right? So the fact that they say they're looking for one is a stark contrast to NCTL, to LNG Canada, to Solistim's LNG, to dozens of mining projects where we have proponents such as some of the major companies in the province, Teck, and in the world, Teck and Newmont and others. These are all real projects. And I don't know why BC needs to be reacting to theoretical projects that they can't even find proponents for. And yeah, if they come up with someone who says we can sell this, then that would be something. The TMX proposal you're talking about, the project we're talking about, why is it of value? Well, it's because we've already spent the money on it. One of the largest subsidies in Canadian history from taxpayers. Everyone listening to us, including you and me, is paying for that, right? Right now, it's approximately 82 to 85% full, depending on the month, that project, and it could be made bigger. And Enbridge, of course, in its lines, has optimization projects as well, projects combined with TMX that are about 1.1 million barrels. So, and they are a fraction of the cost of what this pipeline would be. Mm-hmm. So, a project has to make sense. And ultimately, in the world of a capitalist project, because the most important thing in the MOU is when they say they're not going to subsidize this thing, like that kind of project, it's got to make money at some level. And this one clearly would have to be massively subsidized by taxpayers' money. And I don't think Canadian taxpayers would feel the same way about the pipeline if they had to pay and subsidize it.
You know, I'm listening to you right now, Minister, and I wonder what then your meetings were like this past weekend with the Federal Energy Minister, Tim Hodgson, who was in BC talking to you and to your government. What was your message to him? Were those discussions fruitful?
Well, very much the same, that we appreciate that the federal government has spent a lot of time on projects that really are still theoretical projects, including other things in the MOU. They talk about nuclear projects for 2050 or something and so on. Our message to him was pretty clear. We got real projects in BC. We're leading Canada. It's why we have the most projects on the major projects list. It's because they're shovel in the ground kind of projects. And we would like the federal government to focus on those projects, to focus on the real and not the politics. I mean, this project got, I guess, Premier Smith through the weekend convention, but really the $14 million they're spending on is $14 million invested in communications. And it's an MOU, not a project approval, because there ain't no project. And so our message to Minister Hodgson, and he was very good to come out here, and we had very good discussion. I hold Minister Hodgson in high regard. Our message to him is, enough of the surreal, let's return to the real.
Adrian Dix, thank you for this. I always appreciate the time.
Anytime. Take care, eh?